Welcome back to the news. Speaking at an event at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday, President Mahinda Rajapaksa said that a program will be implemented to build religious coexistence in the country.
A meeting was held yesterday with the most venerable Mahanayakas, Anunayakas and other heads of all the sects in the island. The President had pointed out that a program is in place to safeguard the religious freedom of everyone. The President also said that the government is committed towards protecting and nourishing Buddhism in the country. The President's media unit said that the Mahasangha had held extensive discussions with the President on the measures that should be followed in the future to protect the Buddha Sasana.
The final rites of the chief incumbent of the Egudoyuna Sunandopananda Vihara in Moratuwa took place at the Sunandopananda Vidyala grounds this evening. Meanwhile, the funerals of the two suspects involved in the murder of the chief incumbent also took place today.
The body of Venerable Marigatha and Ebimala Ansatera was placed at the Egudoyuna Sunandopananda Vihara on Monday for the public to pay their last respects. Following religious observances, the body of the late Thera was taken to the Sunandopananda Vidyalaya grounds. Meanwhile, based on the order issued by the Kaltara Magistrates Court, the funerals of the two suspects involved in the murder of the chief incumbent took place at the Pothipitiya Valley Cemetery in Vaduwa.
On to news from Parliament. United National Party parliamentarian Sajith Premadasa, speaking in Parliament today, questioned about pension anomalies.
On the
14th of January 2010, 7,000 pensioners were brought to temple trees and a promise was made under the presidential campaign that the pension anomalies will be completely removed from the next budget. Promise was not made to reduce it.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, it was not about removing the anomalies completely. The anomalies have reduced after certain measures were taken.
On the 14th of September 2010, PB Jasundara told the pensioners that the well has dried up. He said that the pension anomalies will be removed when there is water.
I will not comment on the statements made by various people. If a bill has been passed in Parliament to increase the pensions of retired parliamentarians and ministers with the increase in salaries, when will a bill be passed in Parliament where pensions given to other retired people will also increase likewise? We will take the required measures for this. Nobody has to point fingers and highlight it.
United National Party parliamentarian Ravi Karunaika raised a question in Parliament today as to whether the US government had made a request from the government to obtain the services of the Sri Lanka Army for operations in Afghanistan.
It was reported that the US had requested for our troops to be sent as a peacekeeping force to Afghanistan. Is this true or not? Please ask a different question. You can send your troops to Haiti, Kenya and other countries. So why can't a question be asked on Afghanistan? The deputy leader, who will be appointed very soon, please ask your question. It has been reported that 58,000 officers in the army who were on active duty have left the service. No one has left the service.
Point of order, Honorable Sajith Premadasa.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, when I asked a supplementary question in Parliament by quoting the Mahinda Chintanaya, the Honorable Deputy Minister of Health said that no such thing has been mentioned in the Mahinda Chintanaya.
එහෙම දෙයක් මහින්ද චින්තන ඉදිරි දැක්මේ සඳහන් වෙලා නැහැයි කියලා. නෑ point of order එකක් තියෙනවා. මේ උත්තරීතර සභාවේ බොරු කියන්න බෑ.
Honorable Sajid Premadasa asked a question. He asked a question, he got an answer which was misleading. So hasn't he got a right to correct
That's not a point of order.
ඔබතුමාටත් මම පෙන්නලා දුන්නා සෞඛ්‍ය නියෝජ්‍ය ඇමතිතුමා බොරු වංචාකාර උත්තරයක් දුන්නේ මේ උත්තරීතර සභාවට.
We have more local news coming up, but before that, here's a look at Action TV.
Court metes out prison sentences with or without vigorous imprisonment. However, regardless of the type of incarceration, it is the prison officials who are vested with the responsibility of enforcing the prison sentence as well as ensuring the safety of prisoners. Prison officials disregarding the duties vested in them through the Prisons Act can be considered as an act of wrongdoing. Individuals who are fully aware of the duties vested in them yet choose to ignore them can be considered as individuals who commit a graver act of wrongdoing. These visuals, captured by News First cameras in close proximity to the Kadawatha town, provides an example of how the Prisons Act is violated. These visuals show individuals who are aware of prison regulations as well as 4 individuals who can be considered as those unaware of such regulations engaging in an activity which violates the Prisons Act. These 4 individuals are inmates of the Mahara prison. The regulations which govern the deployment of inmates to carry out various services outside the prison walls are crystal clear. One of the conditions that govern the deployment of inmates is the need for a document issued by one of the 4 prisons commissioners authorizing the deployment. However, such a document will only be valid for the usage on Saturdays and Sundays. Even on such days, the inmates can only be sent to government institutions or places of religious worship registered with the government. A jailer at the Mahara prison, along with the replacement driver who had reported to work a week ago on casual basis, was seen taking 4 inmates to this location in a lorry belonging to the prisons department. This location where the inmates were asked to work is not a state institution, nor is it a place of religious worship registered with the government. However, this location has some relationship with the Department of Prisons. This house belongs to an individual who retired from the post of Prisons Commissioner nearly 4 months ago. These 4 inmates who were seen working at the location the entire day were forced to work as servants for a retired individual who was attached to the Department of Prisons. Is this part of their prison sentence? The 2 individuals who accompanied the inmates and the lorry which transported them are maintained through public funds. Therefore, it is not wrong to consider that prison officials wasted public funds by serving this retiree. Minister of Rehabilitation and Prison Reforms. This is over to you.
Journalists raised questions during the cabinet media briefing held today on a statement made by a cabinet minister.
Actually, he asked what is the position of the government, what is the decision of this statement.
So that is why we are looking into it. That's what I said. As the umbrella organization, we will look into it. So that is what, whether it is against or for it, we need to ask is what his intention was. So that has to be looked into first. So let him.
But honestly, I think the whole point is, we are trying to make light of this. It's a very serious allegation.
I know.
When you say,
I know. I agree with you. I don't deny that.
Foreign power on our soil is trying to destabilize the country. I think it has to be taken very serious.
Very serious.
So at least has Honorable Veeravansa brought this to the attention of the authorities before even public.
Well, that has to be looked into. That's what I said. These are all things that have been, that is within all what you're saying is within that shell. So we have to now, sir, he made this statement. But I must tell you that he had made previous statements. He had gone at a strike some time ago against the US. So it is not for the first time. It has happened. So he is one of those. And he represents a political party.
Don't his statement embarrass the government?
Well, the level of embarrassment will know, and depending on the whatever the consequences of it.
The Human Rights Watch says that the Commonwealth should shift its venue for the November 13 Heads of Government meeting from Sri Lanka unless the Sri Lankan government makes prompt and measurable, meaningful progress on human rights. The Human Rights Watch made this statement in a public letter to the Commonwealth Heads of Government.
The public letter addressed to the Commonwealth heads of government says that the Sri Lankan government under President Mahinda Rajapaksa has taken no meaningful steps to address serious abuses by government forces in the final months of the armed conflict with the LTTE in 2009. The letter goes on to say that since then the government has been responsible for a worsening human rights situation. The letter by the Human Rights Watch quotes its Asian director Brad Adams as saying the Sri Lankan government's blatant disregard for the Commonwealth's principles of human rights and democratic reform makes it a poor host for this important event. Human Rights Watch is also deeply concerned that in addition to hosting the 2013 Commonwealth Summit, Sri Lanka will hold the chairmanship of the Commonwealth from 2013 to 2015. Adams says a summit in Sri Lanka will cast serious doubt on the Commonwealth's commitment to supporting human rights, democratic reform and fundamental human rights enshrined in the Commonwealth Harare Declaration of 1991. Adams also says handling Sri Lanka leadership of the Commonwealth at a time when democratic institutions are under direct and sustained attack by the Sri Lankan government would be an affront to the victims of rights violations in the country and around the Commonwealth.
Now, journalists raised a question at the cabinet media briefing held today on the release issued by the Human Rights Watch.
Human Rights Watch සංවිධානයේ මේ නිවේදනයක් නිකුත් කරමින් පොදු රාජ්‍ය මණ්ඩලයෙන් ඉල්ලීමක් කළා දෙනවා මේ ඒ සමුදුර ලංකාවේ තියන්න එපා කියලා. මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් මොකද රාජේෂ්?
This is nothing new for us. We expected this. Such pressures are constantly exerted on us.
අපිට නිරන්තරයෙන් එල්ලලා තිබෙනවා.